information on a map-based format. So, for example, here we are seeing the Iberian Peninsula, and you have these squares that are colored according to this scale here. We are seeing monthly precipitation, and when you hover the cursor on the map, you have this information here. The first line is the value for that point, then the latitude and the longitude. So we are looking at 39.25 latitude north, 7.75 longitude west, and the value is 47.18 millimeters of monthly precipitation. This is the value for January 2015. And we have the possibility here to choose the year and the month of every year. And as you see, we have information from 2020 all the way back to 1979, which is the oldest year on the Iberian Peninsula. You can choose a specific area that we have in the prototype, which is the Douro Valley of Portugal. It's a wine region. And in here, the information has a higher resolution. It's a 1 by 1 kilometer resolution, meaning each of these small squares is a 1 by 1 kilometer. It's also important to notice that you have the possibility of choosing among climate variables, which are these: temperature, max, min, average, and precipitation, bioclimatic indicators, and you have on-screen guidance for all of them, explaining what they are and what they serve for, okay? And well, something which is an innovation from MedGold, it's wine risk indicators. We have two types of risk indicator, a sanitary risk indicator and a heat risk indicator. So for example, for the year 2015, this was the distribution of sanitary risk in the Iberian Peninsula, higher in the southwest, lower in the northeast. But if we look at heat risk in 2015, as it was a warm year, you see a lot of high risk in central and northeast Spain. So as you can see, the interface is very intuitive. You have all these small circles with a question mark, which provide information as to what you can choose and what you can see in the maps. So let me again zoom back to the Douro Valley to show you another feature, which is if you want to see historical information for a specific point, and now we are talking about sanitary risk, and we are seeing the distribution of sanitary risk in the north of Portugal, including the Douro Valley for the year 2015, but you have a specific point you want to see, you just click in there, and you have this chart popping up, and it will show you the historical evolution of sanitary risk. Now, of course, with climate change, that evolution has meant a decrease in the sanitary risk. But if we change for heat risk, for example, and we see the same spot, let it just come back up. It's loading up. Here we are. So now I click the same point, and the heat risk has been increasing a long time. Also important to notice that I told you that when we were watching the Iberian Peninsula, we had information from 1979 to 2020. For the Douro Valley, we are using a longer data set that starts in 1951 all the way to 2015. So that can provide a much longer information. Another important aspect is that you can export this information as an image or as data that you can read with Excel. This is for the chart, and if you want to export the map, you just click in here. Again, you can export it as data, as a picture, or as a format that can be used with climatological applications. And so this is the presentation I had for you. I'm now stopping the share of my screen, and passing the word to my colleague Marta Teixeira so she can introduce you to the seasonal forecast screen. Marta, please.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I will talk about the seasonal forecast tab. I think you are seeing my screen, right? Okay. Thank you, Anthony. Similarly to the historical data tab, it's possible to consult three types of data already mentioned: the essential climate variables, the bioclimatic index, and the risk index. These data will be shown for the Iberian Peninsula because the seasonal forecast is based on Era 5 data. These data are obtained monthly, providing monthly forecast for the following 7 months. Below, appears a skill on and skill off button. The skill is nothing more than a measure that accounts for the model's ability to predict or not what will happen on the place, having historical information as validation. The minimum skill value considered was 70%. That is, the model would have to hit 70% of the time in its prediction compared to the would happen to show in skill on. So when we activate the skill button, it's possible to see a reduction of Sorry, someone is talking. Okay. So when we activate the skill button, it's possible to see a reduction in shade areas on the map. This means that only areas where the skill has reached the mini values are shown. Now, in order to better explain how the platform works in relation to this tab and how it can be used, I will give you an example. Let's imagine we are a war in May of 2021, and we would like to know how the maximum temperature will be in the next months, for example, to the month of July. We go here and select the month, the month in which the forecast was available. So in forecast made in May, June 2021, July, and the month of May. That is in May, the forecast for July would be that the maximum temperature would be above of the average of the climatological normal in practically all Portugal. To see for a specific location, we can click on the map and a graph will appear at the bottom of the screen. So, I think someone is talking to me. I don't know. Okay. It's not for me. Okay. Sorry, I can close a window because I listen some noise. Please. It's here.
Only you listening noise.
I don't know who's talking. So sorry. I'm backing. I'm talking about the climate, okay?
Hello. Hello, sorry, I'm from the technical side. Yes, there is someone who has not turned the micro off, so I kindly remind everyone to close their mic so that only the person who's speaking is talking, so only Marta. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. backing. Okay, when you click to see for a specific location, we can click on the map, and the graph will appear at the bottom of the screen. The graph show values since 1993. You can look here, and where the rectangles were the simulation made by the model, and the blue dots represent what really come to be its observed data. Now, analyzing the bioclimatic index, this index being determined using intervals that comprise a few months. We no longer have the possibility to choose the month for which we want to see the forecast, because the indices are calculated annually. So, for example, spring rain. Spring rain. Selecting the forecast made in March, the forecast indicates that the precipitation will be below normal in practically all mainland of Portugal. From here, we can conclude that it seems that we will have a spring with a little rain. This type of information is extremely important in the wine sector, indicating either it will be a spring with a big pressure from associated disease, making it possible to manage in advance the need to purchase phytopharmaceuticals to combat disease that may arise, among other decisions making. Was mentioned by Antonio, during the project, 2 new indices were determined specifically developed for the sector. Complementing the information from the bioclimatic index. Based on the bioclimatic index and essential variables, it was also possible to predict these indices. So selecting, for example, the sanitary risk. Imagining we are in the month of March of 2021, we find that the forecast indicates that spring will present low sanitary risks, so the risk of the vineyards being attacked by downy mildew and powdery mildew are low. The seasonal forecast does help to make decisions for the coming months, and this information is updated monthly. This timely planning allows you to reduce costs from the purchase of products to a better management of labor, but also to reduce the environmental impact of bad applications of phytopharmaceuticals, among many other advantages of seasonal forecasts. With my shortly presentation, I hope you have realized the potential of this type of tool. Now I will pass the word to my colleague Natasha, who will present the climate project in tabs.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me properly? Yeah? Thank you. Well, I will share my screen now. And as Marta said, I will present you the long-term projections. Can you see my screen? Yeah? Okay, very good. For the long-term projections, and I think that this tool is very easy to use and very intuitive, as you have already seen in the other tabs presented by both Antonio and Marta. But here for the long term, I think it's even easier. And for this, and if you are not aware, or if you are not familiar with the terms or the climatic terms or any of these area, you just need to check it, and you will have additional and detailed information of every part of this section. Then, if you want to check for climate information, in this situation, for the long-term projections, we don't have the sanitary risk that we have developed under the scope of this project. We have the climate parameters and the bioclimatic indices, which are metrics for viticultural zoning, and you have more information if you need. Selecting the region, again, the Douro region, you can then select the, and we are in the climate, okay, parameters. You can then select between the accumulation of precipitation to temperature being it maximum, minimum, or average temperature in a monthly basis. Okay, then I selected the maximum temperature. You can then select the time period. You have here these 1971 to 20,000 as a reference period, and then you have 2 periods for the next 30 and 60 years. I will select the next 30 period, the next period of 30 years, and select the month of maturation period, August, here in the North Hemisphere. Then selecting the concentration, here you have two possible scenarios about the greenhouse gas emission concentration peak. You have the intermediate and then the high. Selecting the intermediate, you can have here the information for the Douro region, and passing through the map, you can have the information about the detailed information about that maximum temperature. If you want to have information having the reference of the moment we are now and the time period of the 1971 to 20,000, you select here anomalies, okay, and you will have the information of the maximum, the temperature above normal. In this situation, we will be in 2 degrees above the reference period. Again, you can export the information, whether it is an image, or you can work it in an Excel file or another for more to work in models. So I will just show you how you can export it as a picture. Okay. Then you just need to explore, and there's the bioclimatic indices. Again, you have here the growing degrees, days, and you, again, for the Douro region, showing up with the greenhouse gas emission scenario. You can check that there's the values, you can use it. Well, I would like to stand out that this information is important for a strategic point of view for the management of the companies. And with this, I will finish my presentation, and I will be happy, me and my colleagues, to answer any question you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marta and Natasha. And now it's the moment for interaction. So even if you don't have questions, if you want to have to make comments or just discuss either how this was prepared or how we can use it, how it can be implemented in your daily management, or even if you'd like to comment to something you don't think it's useful, or you think it's useful, please come in. Just switch your cam on and your mic on if you want, and let us hear from you.
Or you just can write it down in the chat. That's
also a possibility, but we would love to hear from you and hear your opinions about how do you, for example, how do you see yourselves using this type of tool? If you have any usefulness for it in your management decisions or not. Alessandro.
No, I would like also just to add, if you are interested in testing the dashboard, you could ask for an account to to the mail contact that I put in the live discussion chat. So if you are interested in testing by yourself the dashboard, please ask us for an account. That's it.
Okay, so are you going to leave us hanging here, or is anybody going to join us? Looks like it's us. So I'm going to share back my screen again. Just bear with me, please. Second. Okay, here we are. So going back to historical climate, and for example, looking to this indicator, which is the growing season average temperature, this being the average, the monthly average, the daily average temperature between April 1st and October 31st, we know that some grape varieties have different levels of GST for their best expression. So, for example, a widely used Iberian variety, which is Tempranillo, has an ideal GST interval between 17 and 19 degrees Celsius. So one of the things that you can do is looking around in the Iberian Peninsula and check in different years how the GST behaved and how adapted it was to grow Tempranillo. For example, we can see that if we go up there, we had 12.95 degrees. It's a bit too low. Over here, we are on the 17 degrees and 18 degrees, 17, 18 again. And then as we move down, it starts to go up and we have 21, 22. So this would be too warm area to produce a good quality Tempranillo in the year of 2015, whereas this area up here, where we have Ribera del Duero, for example, or Rioja up here, we had better conditions. The same for some areas of the Douro Valley. But let's have a more detailed look at the Douro Valley in terms of this analysis. Again, we are still seeing the year 2015, which was a warm year. So let me just click this off and zoom in a bit more in here in the valley. And so as you can see, the distribution of temperatures around the valley has very different profiles as you are closer or further away from the river itself. So as you can see, these areas closer to the river, they are very low in altitudes and they have higher temperatures, actually temperatures that are not really adequate to grow Tempranillo, which is in this region is known as Tinta Roriz. It's a synonym, Tinta Roriz. But if you move away a little bit from the riverside, you start to get temperatures around 19, 18, especially on this western area here. So you had some areas where you could grow nice wines from Tempranillo or Tinta Roriz in 2015. But let's have a look at 2012, which should have been a cooler year. And you can see that the temperature profile in here we go. So even closer to the river in 2012, you still had temperatures below the 19 degrees threshold. And therefore, this would be a year where Tinta Roriz or Tempranillo would have made some nice wines. So this is one type of analysis that you can do when you are using this type of tool in order to understand what happened in the past. And this will inform you as to how the climate has changed the quality of grapes and therefore the quality of wine, of course. It's just one of the many features that this tool provides to users who can then decide what you should do regarding the place where you are and the information, the climate information you have. I see we have some questions.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that's very good. So I have the first question. After Mary's presentation this morning, do you see this dashboard providing decision-making information in the upcoming season? Well, that's exactly what we are going to discuss tomorrow. If you ask me if I would like to see this dashboard providing decision-making information, yes, of course, we would. This is something that has shown a great potential and a great power in order to allow us to better manage our processes, both at the vineyard and at the winery. So yes, we would like to have that. What it takes to have that is to create a way of making this service operational. That means finding funding and also to have an institutional support in order for this to work. And that is what you will see the discussions tomorrow when we discuss about the project legacy. There's another question. Will there be small growers using this dashboard? I hope so, because we had a lot of work to make sure that even small growers could have an easy access and an easy use of this tool. So hopefully, if we manage to make the legacy of the project result as an operational service, this will be accessible to everybody, small and large. Third question, if we are going to continue to update the dashboard with forecasts for this year, no, we are not for this year. The next steps of the project is trying to ensure a continuity post-project for this service to be available. And therefore making it accessible to everybody, and not just in the Mediterranean, but pretty much across the whole world. That's our goal. That's what we are working for. The final months of the project are fully dedicated to everybody in this consortium trying to make that happen. Whoa, this is not the third question. That's like 4 questions in one. So we have to change the varieties to others more resilient to future conditions. That depends a lot on the varieties themselves. You know, some varieties have enough genetic diversity to adapt to changing conditions. And on those cases, it should be possible to keep on using the same varieties. For example, I was talking before about Tempranillo. In Portugal, we have conserved more than 250 clones of Tempranillo. And the recent work that was published in 2019 has shown that there are differences between those 250 clones in terms of temperature tolerance. It is therefore possible to make a selection of Tempranillo clones that withstand temperatures up to 3 degrees above the least tolerant ones. So that's a good possibility for adaptation. However, other varieties which have less diversity will probably have less capacity to adapt, because adaptability is a direct function of diversity. And if the platform can help you make that type of decision, I think I just shown how it can. Actually, if because you can export the data that we are visualizing as a map, you can have a table when you export it as CSV values, that is data values that can be read by Excel. You will have a table that has on one column the latitude, the next column the longitude, and then the value for the climate parameter you are looking for. And then you can just organize, sort the information. For example, you want to find all places that will have temperatures below 18 degrees. You just sort it according to temperature, and then you will see which are the geographic coordinates that will have temperatures below 18 degrees. And you can see that historically, but you can also see that for the future for 2 dates, like Natasha was saying. But Natasha, would you like to add something to that?
Yes. Thank you. Well, I think with the I'm hearing some background here. Okay, thank you. Regarding the grape varieties, just to mention that we are talking about grape varieties with the bioclimatic indices, and as I said, these are metrics for viticultural zoning. And with this, we will be able to assess the climatic potential of a region for viticulture. And given the fact that we know the grape varieties that work better in certain conditions, we will be able to, based on this forecast information, to define which grape varieties and the internal genetic diversity of the grape variety, we can be in a position to better decide which one we will be using. And as I said, this from a strategic point of view, it is very interesting for the decision making in our sector. And that's what I wanted to add. We have more questions, Antonio?
Yes, thank you, Natasha. Yes, we have a question regarding the disease risk variable. What parameters were considered to determine the disease risk? I could answer that, but I think it would be better if we invite Alessandro to join in. Alessandro, would you like to take this one yourself?
Yes, sure. Thank you, and thank you for the question. Well, regarding this compound risk index, it's a very interesting story from my side, because it's a very good example of co-production and co-design, because we have started from the memory and the story told by Antonio and his colleagues, like Marta and Natasha, regarding the good and bad years in the past, and which could be the possible source of risk in terms of pest, and so in the sense of the risk of very high sanitary treatment, a very high number of sanitary treatment for the Douro Valley. At the end, we have identified 3 sources of risk, in particular the spring rain, the growing season temperature, and the rainfall during the harvest time, so during autumn. So the idea is we have constructed this index based on the percentile of these 3 bioclimatic indicator, and we have considered that higher the spring rain, for instance, higher the risk. The higher is the risk for sanitary treatment, but also linked with the percentile of growing season temperature. For instance, if we have lower temperature during the growing period of the crop of the grape, the risk was higher, even higher, and especially if the temperature in the growing season was not so hot, the harvest time could be later, and so in this case the weight of the rainfall during the harvest time could be also higher. So we have had a sort of linear combination of these three terms: so spring precipitation, growing season temperature, and harvest rainfall, more or less. I hope it replied to your question, Luis.
Thank you, Alessandro. I actually think this was one of the most interesting moments we engaged during the project. I do have a vivid memory of one day being with Alessandro speaking about how we would combine this. And this was a very rainy day. I was inside my car in the parking lot in central Lisbon. And we stayed like almost 2 hours discussing this until we came to a conclusion. But in the end of the day, what we achieved with this was a logical way of combining the bioclimatic indicators to give a perception of risk. Of course, this may not be 100% accurate. Nothing is 100% accurate when you talk about climatology, and less when you are talking about climate forecasts. But it's something that when we compared with the past and with the history, and this was not just checked by myself, but also checked with other colleagues. So combining our memories and our records about what happened in the past, these indicators did match quite well the more extreme years for the good and for the bad. So we believe this is one of the powerful propositions of this project. We now have a last question. Would this service be useful at resolutions which are not as high? Okay, so it's important to see that we have two different resolutions in the dashboard right now. So sorry for that. We have the resolution at which we visualize the Iberian Peninsula, which is a 30 by 30 kilometer grid. And then if we zoom to the Douro Valley, as we have seen before, we have a 1 by 1 grid coming here, so a lot more detail. So I insisted during the project many times that we required this higher resolution, because when you are dealing with 30 by 30 kilometers, if you are in a region which is not flat, then you have specific mesoclimatic effects that will change the climate along the region. This is a lot more evident in a mountain region like the Douro. In the Douro, to actually describe the climate, you require this type of resolution at 1 by 1 kilometer at least, because we want to make this useful for farmers, as I said before. And in the Douro, the vast majority of farmers own properties that are smaller than 1 hectare. Okay, so 1 hectare is a real small piece of land, and if you do not have this level of detail, you can actually be misinforming the farmers. However, when you are talking about the management of a whole region, for example, in terms of an appellation body who wants to understand what is going to happen over their region, the 30 by 30 kilometer is already a very good approach. We can see here very easily that we have different situations in northern Portugal than we have in southern Portugal, or in central Spain than we have against South Spain. So regionally, this provides already a very good information that is usable at that scale. And here I was looking at risk indicators, but the same goes for climate variables like precipitation, and we see very well the northern part of Iberian Peninsula a lot more humid than the central and southern part, which is something we know it's like that. The same goes for average or even maximum temperatures. So we can see that this we are looking at winter temperatures. So that's January, and of course the central part of Spain, especially the central north part of Spain, is the coolest part in Iberia. But if then we change to July, we can see that the warmer part is the southern, central southern half of Iberia. So this provides already some very good examples and information that can allow to define, for example, geographic areas, to understand how climate change is affecting different areas and so on. And as Alessandro has posted in the chat window, you can find a lot more details about all of this in this paper that has been made available on open access. And stay tuned, because this year is going to provide many more scientific papers with the results of MedGold. So there will be a lot of more things being published. I don't know if Alessandro, you want to add something?
Yes, I would like to add another interesting aspect. If there were a future for this prototype, for this tool, in the future, other kind of data set could be also used. For instance, we can use in the future, if we could have the possibility to further implement this tool, we could use, for instance, Era 5 land. It is a new data set from Copernicus at 10 kilometers global over the land. And so all these maps, all this fancy map, could be also reported at 10 kilometers instead of 30. This is for climate, for the monitoring, and also for seasonal forecast as well. So in the future, we could also consider higher data set, also not only for a zoom over the Douro Valley, but also for the rest of the continent, because there should be other possibility in the future for higher resolution data set.
Yes, and not just for wine, also for any other crop. I think that the great thing about what we have done is that we created a concept and we demonstrated that the concept works. So what is the concept? It's a piece of software that goes to the data stores where all these big data lakes are stored, typically by the Copernicus system. It takes the data relevant for the analysis the user wants to do, processes it, and returns it, as you are seeing here, as this easy to use maps. Now, if you can define different indicators, you can define different periods in time, you can keep on updating with the new data coming from more recent years, and you can, of course, create new indicators adequate to different crops, even for broad acre productions like barley, wheat, soybean, whatever. And because the Copernicus data store has data from the whole globe, from all across, from the whole planet, it is possible to do this for anything, pretty much anything. That's why we are trying so hard to make this operational, because once this is operational, then a whole lot of new possibilities will be opened, and the tool will just evolve on the base of the needs of users that will be continuously communicating, but also evolving as science evolves and becomes more performant, as Alessandro was saying, with these new data sets with higher resolution. So I don't see any more questions. How are we doing on time? I think we still have like 15 minutes, right?
If you want, if you wish, we can stay here more time. No worry about this. So
Yeah,
I don't know if there are...
make sure you do, because that's what we were paid for.
Yes. Yes. And so I don't know if there are any other questions from the audience or comments or other comments on this tool. If you have some curiosity or something like that.
I think they like to see us talking to ourselves. Okay, so I mean, if there is nothing else, we can probably close it. Thank you very much for being here today. I hope you got a good idea of the possibilities that this tool can provide, and please stay interested. Oh, Alessandro.
No, just to final reminder, you can find a lot of material on the dashboard and for this sector, for the wine sector, but also for the other sector in the digital gallery of the Swapcard platform. So please visit the digital gallery and you can find a lot of additional material like videos, info sheet, user guide, and so on.
And do not forget that tomorrow we have a very exciting program. The day of tomorrow, if you are looking into the future of this, it's tomorrow that you are going to hear about it. We'll have some very important people coming to join us and to discuss how we are going to make this a reality, how we are going to overcome the valley of death of this idea and make it fly over it and become something that everybody can use. So I hope to count with all of you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you, Marta, Natasha, Alessandro, for your participation.
Thank you.
And see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.